Um, the state came out with recommendations on math. And let's see. So they came out with certain times when entering or exiting the school, when in the corridors, when they're less than 6 feet, when you're on a bus, and in other areas. And the task force. So and there's no tone here, but things changed when we were going just K through 3 and a half day. We thought the kids could tolerate math for about a half day at that age level.
Sure.
And at the secondary level, we thought we were going to have about 20-25% of our population that we could manage. We would require math, but give frequent math breaks. So, but this is where some districts are. The task force, I felt, University of our medical piece, and our administrators felt that we should be 100% math system.
Yeah. With
math breaks, of course.
Sure.
But part of this is if you go a little bit higher than if you fall back, you're still within safe zone.
Yeah.
If you start back, you fall back, then you're in unsafe zone.
Right.
And so Dean wrote for the other districts who are doing not complete math, but just situational math. But I saw the front page of the Monitor today that said now they're looking at math full-time for everything.
Yeah, and also, do you know so I know the governor just signed in the order that in groupings of over 100, you have to have a mask. Does a school fall into that? I just don't know. Like, would that be considered a gathering of over 100?
So according to the commissioner, it's really if we'd have an assembly.
Okay, which we don't plan on having.
Right, we wouldn't. We won't have those kind of assemblies, I think, for a long time. Putting 500 kids in the gymnasium and sharing the world. So, so that's where that we would require it. But that's what's very interesting to me. Like everybody I talked to couldn't imagine having an hour-long assembly packed into a gym or an auditorium. But yet, I think some districts are going to do that with math. But I know kids. So. I'm happy to revise a lot of the policy is perfect. We just have to revise, if you believe, and we want to recommend to the board, which I think we do, is a policy that requires math full day with appropriate supervised math break.
That's what I would do. I read the second one, the one that's like you only have to do it sometimes, and the K through 3 would not be required to wear a face mask. And I'm just not comfortable with that. There's nothing magic about 6 feet indoors necessarily that like stops air from moving.
And as I talked about a couple of presentations, our role as instruction, our role is working with kids. It's a little bit like we instruct kids on proper fire drill. We could on seatbelt wearing, texting, right? I did a whole thing last year on texting while driving.
Yeah.
So to me, and I may be all wet on this, but masks are that category. You don't text because you can hurt somebody else. You wear a seatbelt because you read it. Mask is a seatbelt.
Yep.
And working with kids. But I also understand if there's a day there's 3 kids in the class and they're 15 feet apart, that the teacher, look, why don't we take a mask break for a little while as we do this? And I get that. Or if it's a very, very hot day and everybody's completely spread out and the windows are open and there's good ventilation that day, and teachers saying, look, let's take a mask break for the next 20 minutes. I'm okay with a teacher allowing a mask break if they're comfortable.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, the default should be we're wearing masks unless we have a supervised with permission mask break.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because even the stuff too, like we talk about like plexiglass partitions. I mean, air goes around, like nothing magic about that. No, I think that looks totally fine. I had marked something, but I think it was on the one that we're not going to go with. And I think it's completely appropriate to say if your child, well, I guess I have 2 thoughts. If your child is not willing to wear a mask, then they cannot be in school. I think that's appropriate until they're ready to wear a mask. We might want to think about how exactly we're going to determine which children or individuals do not need to wear a mask based on a health issue.
Yeah, and I think that's typically a nurse, or if it's a sensory issue, it would be the special education team, but we can add that.
Yeah, I think it's in there. No person, including a student, shall be required to wear a mask if their disability or a medical condition prevents them from doing such. It's just something I noted.
I'm with you.
I'm trying to think. This policy, I guess, too, it allows us to be flexible enough that if down the road we want to either modify the policy or walk it back a little bit, we can. Correct? Okay.
Absolutely. Always, the board can always amend or change a policy. And if it's time sensitive, we can waive the 3 readings and do it in 1 meeting.
I see.
And I think in part of that is, I'll review the language, but I'll add, we understand that that teachers can provide masks free.
Yeah, but it would be definitely a teacher-led mask break, not just like kids whipping declaring I am taking a mask break.
Right.
I guess they could ask the teacher to take one,
yeah.
and that would be totally fine.
Right. Yeah, there's 2 people. It's a study hall at the high school where most of the kids went home. There's 2 kids left.
Right.
Mr. Zipke, would you mind if we have a mask break for the next 20 minutes as I don't think there's anything. Teacher might, I'm not really comfortable with that. I'm sorry, which is perfectly appropriate.
Yep.
Or I am comfortable, absolutely, based on where we're at right now and what's going on. Let's do a half-hour mask break. Yep. Yeah.
And I don't think we necessarily need to codify what exactly a mask is in here, do we? I guess that's like a half question. Do we want to codify it, basically?
Well, we could use the same language that we've used in our other work, just CDC approved face covering.
Yeah. I think that's, I would probably, because I could see kids being like, this is a mask, I've got my shirt above my mouth, or whatever.
And I don't know if I told you, I think I did mention it, right? That Chris, there's a lot of vendors out there that are trying to capitalize on all the, and one sent a really nice print of a hawk on a gator.
Okay.
But there's research, gators are not as good as masks. They're really not built for 3-ply or with enough cloth. So I'm glad we didn't purchase a couple hundred of those.
Yeah. Well, because you could use a gator, but exactly, it would need to be folded over. It would need to be the appropriate thickness. It can't be if you can see through it, it's probably not doing its job. I was just reading actually about the flip of that research this morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, them saying but the study was meant to basically study the way in which to study masks. It wasn't necessarily to study the actual pieces of cloth. And it's been walked back a little bit of gators are not, because I think one was claiming that wearing a gator was worse than wearing no mask at all, which is not, they've walked that back.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy that one.
Yeah. Great. No, I think this looks good. And I guess we just have these fill-in pieces up above.
So I will I'll do a draft this weekend. I'll send it to you, and we'll have it for the board on the 20th.
Okay.
Sensitive, we'll waive the 3 readings.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I'll have the leadership team and the nurses look at the final copy too.
Okay, that'd be perfect. Great. All right. Do you need anything? Yeah.
No, I would just, when we have our meeting at noon, I've got a draft of the agenda for tonight. I just want to make sure we go through, make sure you're happy and Jim's happy.
Yeah, I think we'll probably touch on a couple things. Absolutely. Are you going to send me a link? Have you sent me? Maybe you've sent me a link already.
I don't think I have yet. I was going to do it right after this Zoom. Yeah, you should have it within the next hour.
Great. No, that's totally fine. I just hadn't flagged it yet. All right. Well, let me know if you need anything else from me, though, in the meantime.
Thanks. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, check. Nice to see you, too. I'll see you in a couple hours.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.